Hi, and welcome back to Continual. It is time to bring out the fuzzy dice as we roll our way through games turned into films. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and before we go too far and we find out how long my voice is going to hold out for the night, let's let everybody introduce themselves. Michael, you're up first.
Thank you. I'm Michael J. Allen, Star-Lord, professional goofball, and USA Today bestselling author of full-spectrum science fiction and fantasy.
Layla?
Hi, I'm Layla Dorine, author of LGBTQ fiction and romance, and I love games.
Elektra?
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and relevant to this, for a while, I was a movie reviewer for Buzzy. Best job I ever had.
Jeanne?
Hey everybody, I'm Jeanne Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal, romantic suspense, and space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott. And I too love a good game.
And Matthew?
I'm Atlanta author Matthew W. Quinn, who is also a regular participant in the movie podcast Myopia Movies. I don't know if we've done any board game movies yet, though.
Well, we're going to see how that goes. And hopefully before the night's over with, we won't all be sorry. So, Michael, what is your favorite adaptation?
I'm a long-term fan of Dungeons and Dragons, but Clue has absolutely got to be my favorite.
All right, why? Other than Tim Curry, you got to give him.
Well, Tim Curry's a great start right there. Not to mention the rest of the cast, but because of the way that the board game Clue plays and how it plays differently every time, the inclusion of the multiple ending just really made that movie feel like a game. Not to mention drove theater viewers wild when they realized there was more than one ending.
Nothing more fun than when you mess with the reviewers. So, Layla, how about you? What's your favorite?
So I do love Clue, and this is probably going to be an unpopular favorite, but I love Battleship. I love that movie. Love it to death. And let me preface that by saying I love Pacific Rim, and so getting to watch those movies back to back, like, give me a good stuff blowing up and, ships and things coming out of the ocean and a good survival arc. And I just think that critics could have been a little kinder to that movie. That game is very hard under normal circumstances anyway. I mean, all it is you call out the right grid, you hit something. They actually gave it a storyline. They gave it a plot. They gave character and emotion to that. So, I mean, yeah, give me some Battleship, please.
And they did a drift with an old battleship, I know.
Yes.
Elektra, how about you?
Well, Battleship will always hold a warm, fuzzy place in my heart because it was the first review I ever wrote that got published for money. I too, with Michael, am a huge fan of Clue. And I'm old school enough that I went to 3 different theaters with 3 different people to see each ending because none of my friends would go see it more than once. And what I loved was the attention to detail they paid to all of the little quirky things about the game. The hallway with the little squares on it. The actual game implements, the candlestick and the rope, and how they used each of them. The details in that just gave it that game feel that you just couldn't get away from. And, how they gave them each the game names, and they made it clear they were aliases because those were nobody's real name. I cannot give you enough love for that. Also, it was hysterically funny. We still watch it if it turns up on cable. I know I have it on VHS tape, but I think it got left behind in the move.
Jeanne, how about you?
Well, I'm going to do a shout out for Clue too, because there's nothing better than Madeline Kahn in Clue. The flames. And but I'm with Layla. I love it when shit blows up. So Battleship all the way. That's my favorite. Like Layla was saying, the fact that they actually gave it a plot, and that the plot was wry and funny, and the whole thing about Art of War, the running gag about Art of War, that's not what it means at all. I absolutely loved that one. And I have to give a big shout out to the Pokemon movie too, because I thought that one was a fun adaptation of a game.
Matthew?
I expected to be alone in this. Turns out I'm very pleasantly surprised not to be, hence the fist pumping. My favorite board game to movie adaptation is either the first of the two new Jumanjis or Battleship. And Battleship has no plot to speak of, so they had to make up a whole alien invasion story. At least Jumanji had a book.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's not to love about a good alien invasion,
Right.
Again, and you drag out all the old guys.
Who then proceed to drag out a 2,000-pound shell. The timing of that shot of the battle, them hauling that shell, the battle, I thought was hilarious.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Now I want to buy that movie.
I have it.
There's going to be a surge in sales, and they're going to not understand why.
Well, it made $400 million overseas. Maybe they'll finally get around to a sequel.
Well, look how long it took them to do the sequel to Pacific Rim, and I was a little disappointed they didn't get everyone back, but I suppose we'll have to accept that.
Well, Eric from True Blood dies in Battleship. They don't need him back.
Resurrection.
Well, if it's all in the same universe, then vampire. Never mind. That can be Battleship 2 as the war against the vampires.
Oh. I want to see Battleship, and I want to see them against the Kaiju. Let's just cross over Battleship and Pacific Rim and see them fight the Kaiju.
Why not?
2,000-pound shells. No more Kaiju.
I don't know. They seem to dispute that in the latest Godzilla films, but that's neither here nor there. So, Layla, what is it about the idea of taking a game that, we've all we've played, especially like board games, card games, where you concoct your own story in the playing, right? What is it about that kind of an element that then says, yeah, this really needs to be a movie?
I guess for me, because, I think everyone here on the panel, we grew up with the tabletop games, and, we saw the infusion of Pokemon, which started as a card game, I think, turned into all this other stuff. Now, I never played Pokemon, but I'm an old school Magic the Gathering player. So I would love to see them take all those orcs and trolls and, scrib sprites and all that, something along the lines of D&D, but with Magic the Gathering, and just a cool fantasy, where maybe the players are playing the game, but then the game is unfolding at a different level. So you're getting that kind of flash from the real world to the fantasy. I just like the potential of what you can do with a game and turning it into a movie. Like, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but when I watch the movie Mouse Hunt, I think of the game Mousetrap. And the two in my head go together. And so that's, to me, the kind of thing that makes a movie turned into a game fun, is when you can picture it playing out and you can picture the players playing it and then the movie happening. It's just something special. It lets you be a part of it.
Elektra, how about you?
Well, like book adaptions, they're looking for a built-in audience to go to the movie of instant fans. And I know we're not talking about video games, but there was that start with, like, Mortal Kombat was how the heck can they turn this into a movie? So we went to go see, just to try. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with board games. How could they turn Battleship, which, as you say, you call the numbers and the squares, and did we blow you up something or not?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very simple mechanic. How could they make that into a movie? So you go see it, and the joy of, there's a plot here, and actual stuff. And I think the thing I most enjoyed about Battleship was they figured out a way to get the game mechanic into the movie and have it make sense. Mm-hmm. And actually have the grid. And that just blew my mind away. Was, they had them calling numbers and they couldn't tell if they hit unless, something went. It's just fantastic. In with the standard, oh my God, we're being invaded by aliens plot. So there was fun there, but somebody's got to build an actual plot, because the ones that flop are the ones that have no plot and they're just trying to make it just like the game.
Well, I was going to say, let's give a call out here as well, because Battleship did leverage the plot of Frogger, right? So,
if you say so. I'm not super familiar.
Jeanne, how about you? What are your thoughts on what it takes to convert from game to film?
Well, I mean, I think both Layla and Elektra have put on it really well. It's like both with like any kind of game, and especially with Clue, every time you play Clue, it's different. And I think the movie makers gave such a nod to that by having different endings. And I remember being so surprised because they didn't really let that escape before the first few weeks of showings, that there were different endings. And, it was before the internet was a real thing. So it was word of mouth that you found out. And then going again to see it and seeing a different ending. And it made it like the game. And it made it so much fun the way the game is fun, because it's, I mean, when you're playing D&D and you've got, a different dungeon master, or one of the great fun things about Dungeons and Dragons is it literally can go off on a tangent on a roll of the dice. And I think the fact that they did that with Clue made it so much fun. And the new Dungeons and Dragons movie was that way to a certain degree. I think they didn't take as much advantage of that as they could. But that to me is part of the fun of it, is that they made it like the game in the sense of roll of the dice. It can go any different way. So that was what was fun to me. And like they said, they actually attached a plot to Battleship and at some point worked in the grid.
I love how in D&D you can start in one world and wind up in another. So could you actually imagine a movie where they started in Dragon Mountain and went into Spelljammer and then like crash into Dark Sun, and you've got 3 different, realms that they can travel through? There is such potential in something like Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah. Well, the problem is it would probably be way too expensive to make, but it would be so much fun.
That's what green screens are for.
They did try that with the Jeremy Irons Dungeons and Dragons. They ended it with taking them into a different world.
Yep.
True.
So Matthew, how about you? What are your thoughts on what it takes to really convert a game and take that into film?
Well, I didn't know Clue had multiple endings. I only saw it once, but that's pretty clever.
Yeah.
You have more homework.
About 15 years ago, they had the Ultramarines movie based on 40K, Warhammer 40K. Have you ever seen that? I wanted to see it so bad and was so disappointed by it because the lore is so cool. It was just a bad adaptation of the lore. It was real cheap looking.
Oh dear.
Well, you're getting another shot at it again here, so.
Yeah. The 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie is also cheap, nasty looking. The new one I heard was good.
The new one's good, yeah.
So I guess putting in the effort.
Michael, sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that's a good start, putting in the effort.
Know
the story, know the lore, and have a little fun with it.
Well, it's like somebody was saying earlier, you've got the built-in audience, and I think Matthew brings up a good point is, don't piss off your built-in audience. Know the lore, know how the game goes, and don't piss off your built-in audience.
Michael, any other thoughts on what it takes to adapt a game to film?
Well, I think Hasbro's got the nostalgia dollars doubled down thing. Even since the 80s, they brought out a new toy for, G.I. Joe or He-Man for every cartoon episode they did. And then they turned right back around and started doing it with video game movies. I mean, somebody told me they're working on Monopoly movies, which I had no idea how that would work.
Yeah.
But
I thought they already did. It was called Trading Places.
Oh,
there's going to be a better version, no doubt. But I mean, the nostalgia is really what we've been talking about, and Hasbro's been selling nostalgia just forever.
True.
Mhm.
Well, one we haven't talked about that really isn't sort of a game to movie adaptation, but is kind of in that same realm are the Lego movies. And I thought those were just brilliant in terms of bringing the game world to the screen and making it, the way some of the kids' movies do, especially the Pixar movies, where it's funny to the parents and to the kids on completely different levels. And I think the Lego movies managed all of that and a little bit more, and created this whole new resurgence of love for Legos and people going back even as adults to go, yeah, I want a Lego set.
Well, those Lego movies were just like the whole way of how a really imaginative kid would be playing with their Legos.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it gave you, this is how you play with them, sort of instructions.
Yeah.
And for
Read
kids
Lego
who are
instructions.
like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just build something? Well, no, you can do this. And you can do anything with them. Just be imaginative.
Yeah.
It gave them a whole new, instruction book for them.
So everything is awesome.
Yeah. I don't
Hey.
know. I had Lincoln Logs, so
All right.
I loved those
And
things.
erector sets.
those two.
So, Electra, I'll start with you on this one. What is your favorite bad adaptation of game to film?
I tend to block them out. I don't know that I guess I think I went to see Ouija board. That's the Ouija board
Yeah.
movie, but I don't remember it very well because I just, it goes away. I don't like horror films as a rule, and I've had to review a number of them. So I watch them, I write the review, and then they just go away. But I remember not caring for it.
I love horror movies, and I've seen all 3 of the Ouija movies, and they were awful. They were so bad. They were so bad, but they weren't the worst horror movie when you really look at all the,
there are bad ones out there, and they all start with the
Yes.
something. Those are usually bad. I've reviewed a lot of those.
I watched through almost every horror that was on one of my streaming services, and it got to the point where I was like, haven't I seen this about 14 times? Oh, it's just the same plot,
With the same actors, just a
with the
different set.
same actors, stranded in the woods, car breaks down. They got to get something new and original in the horror movie. And the concept for Ouija could have been something really special because they've got that otherworldly, the ability to tap into the otherworldly. They could have done so much with that. They could have done something almost like Tales from the Crypt, just playing and doing different stories with the Ouija board. And I think they dropped the ball just trying to make it scary and not really putting a whole lot in it, but the scary.
So, Jeannie, how about you? What
Well,
is
that was going to be my entry was the Ouija movies because I was one of those kids that was spooky from the jump and loved all the Ouija stuff and all that. So when the movie came out, I thought this is going to be great, and I was so disappointed. And because there was so much, like Layla said, there was so much possibility there. And then they made 3 of them. I'm like, yeah, no, not good, none of them. The other one that I was disappointed a little bit in, because they turned it from kind of a horror thing into sort of a a bromance kind of a thing was the movie Tag. And in Tag is not only a game, but it's a board game, and the board game is like you try to get rid of your opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and I was looking up stuff for this panel, and one of the things the internet suggested was that Labyrinth was a movie from a board game, but I don't remember a Labyrinth board game. So
there's a Labyrinth toy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go.
But Tag wasn't based on a game. Tag was based on a newspaper article about a bunch of guys that actually played that weird game of tag that they explored in the movie. So don't blame that one on the game. Based on those bros that played tag for years, kept the same game going.
Well, we played it for a long time when I was in college because, well,
why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, but you weren't tagging each other at your weddings, were you? These guys were serious. It was a fun article, though. I think it was in the Times, maybe.
Trust me, if we'd been doing it by that point, the answer would probably have been yes.
I never thought of Tag as a board game, but that was a great movie.
Yep.
I loved that movie. That's another one that I have in my collection. Great movie.
So Matthew, how about you? What's a good favorite bad adaptation?
I'm not really sure, because the ones that have bad reputations, like Zathura, I haven't seen.
It deserves it, but I've watched it.
I do have a question. I know we're talking movies, but can I count the Vampire the Masquerade TV show anywhere?
Oh, well,
there's a Vampire Masquerade TV show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And C. Thomas Howell was in it. I think it ran like 2-3 seasons.
I thought I only made like a half a season.
No,
It was Fox.
I thought it
was only one season.
It was on Fox in the 90s, so of course I haven't heard of it. It didn't last very long.
I know the guy who plays the main vampire got killed in a motorcycle accident, which kind of shut things down, but I could have sworn it went 2 seasons, at least. It was called Kindred the Embraced.
Yes.
I've got it around here. As usual, I've got it around here somewhere. It's on VHS.
All right, Michael, how about for you? What's a favorite bad adaptation? One you love to hate on?
I'm going to start with defending. The new Dungeons and Dragons was great for pushing back toward the cartoon, but the 3 movies in that set, they're guilty pleasures. But when you want to come back to a really bad adaptation, let's talk about Real Steel, the Rock'em Sock'em Robots for Wolverine.
Oh,
though there's a little Rock'em
that is pretty bad.
Too.
I tried to watch it.
Well, if you tried, then it was definitely a bad adaptation.
That's almost as bad as if they would have tried to make Hungry Hungry Hippos.
I saw some fake posters for that. It looked like a horror movie.
Oh, of course.
Hippos kill more people than crocodiles. A killer hippo movie would work.
Oh,
It was a good horror movie.
Well, after that Winnie the Pooh horror movie they came out with, I guess we can have Hungry Hungry Hippos, the horror movie. I don't know.
I'm willing to give it a try. So Layla, any other
dark turn?
Huh? Layla, any other favorite bad adaptation you want to kind of throw in the mix?
No, I think I got them all on that one. I like camp, and I like stuff that's just a little bizarre. So I don't, aside from Ouija, I haven't really seen a bad one. I've watched a lot of the video game ones too, and I can laugh at them and just be like, okay, they can be funny and nostalgic and cool.
So, and I want to come back. I want to dive a little bit into Clue because I think it is that quintessential adaptation. We've hit it on a fair amount. But that notion of Clue and kind of pulling together the all-star cast, pulling together all the story, all the varied endings, and the fact that it was right at that pre-internet moment, which meant there was a lot of things you could do. And I mean, I think people are now still breaking down the Easter eggs from that movie. I always see new stuff all the time. When we look at that particular film, do you think that really was the ideal opportunity to take from game to film? So, Jeannie, is that really the quintessential model for how you can take game to film?
In many respects, I think it is. I mean, if you can gather a cast like that, to me, the Clue's strongest, the thing that makes it so strong is the cast of the movie are all people who have that stand-up comedy, ability to drop a line, to ad lib, to flow in with whatever someone else says. And I think the directors of that movie let them go, like just let them off the chain for the most part. And I think it is in many respects a good pattern card for anybody who would be trying to do it in the future, in the sense that they completely respected the game in the fact of there's the candlestick, there's the library, Tim Curry is the butler, and Tim Curry is just brilliant in it. But they allowed the characters to be just like you would playing the game and kind of ad lib and kind of be, who they needed to be. Is it Madeline Brennan? No, it's, what's her name? Eileen Brennan.
Right.
She's just brilliant too. And they're just all so good. Christopher Lloyd and you've got all these people, Leslie Ann Warren. Yeah, Leslie Ann Warren's in it. And all these people that they are themselves and they're big stars, but they create these characters. I just think they've done such a great job of allowing each individual person to shine within their persona, but also stayed really faithful to the way you play the game. And so, yeah, I think it is a pretty good pattern card for it. Having never played Jumanji as a board game, I don't know if it's accurate to have running ostriches, but I'd say Clue would be a good pattern card.
All right, Matthew, thoughts?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Talking about the actual film adaptation of Clue, what is it? What is it about that film? Do you think it's a good pattern for how you really can take and adapt game to film? Because there's a lot of tools you've got in the Clue game, right? It's all about storytelling to start with. But, is that a model for you? Are there things that you would take away from that?
It's been a very long time since I've seen the movie or played the game, but a good cast covers a multitude of sins. Even if it's bad, good actors can help.
Or make it so bad it's good.
That helps too. I mean, as long as it makes the money.
I think that the latter is what you got in Battleship. A lot of good actors make it so bad.
So, Michael, any other thoughts or stuff you want to add about Clue and that adaptation? Or
Oh yeah, one of the things that makes it a good template for others to follow is how much love they gave the game setting. Every room. I mean, we've been imagining Clue for years, but now we're seeing the ballroom and the billiard room and the secret passages. And I think that was the setting was as much of an ace as any of the very highly respected comic cast, because it gave us a better way to be in the game, and doubtless increased Clue sales. I mean, wasn't it shortly after that where you started getting the flavored Clues, the Harry Potter Clue and the whatever Clue?
No, that movie came out way before Harry Potter.
Well, right, but I mean the flavor clues. Like Harry Potter was just the first one I
theme
thought
clues.
it had it. Yeah, the theme clue.
Possibly.
Layla, how about you?
So funny enough, like we had Clue growing up. It was one that my mom loved. She and my dad would break it out. It wasn't my favorite game. Like it just wasn't one that I really got into until after I saw the movie. Seeing the movie and then laughing along with the cast and the comedy, for me, that gave me a better appreciation of what the game could be. And by then I was also a D&D player. And so I'd had some more experience with like that creativity and imagination that goes into that kind of gameplay. But when you're a little kid and you're playing the game with adults for the first time and you've got no like RPG experience and you've got no really way to equate it, it's like, okay, this is more of a game for like the adults. I have no clue what's going on. I don't know. I don't understand how I'm supposed to solve this. So once it was a movie and I'd watched the movie and my folks had gotten the movie, it was hilarious. I was like, okay, now I want to try Clue again. Now let's sit down and play, because now I have kind of a better idea of like how much fun this can be. And that I think was the great thing for me, because it gave me an appreciation for a game that otherwise I really didn't like. Which is ironic because I loved Battleship. I think because it was the math and the grid, and I love math. I loved Battleship. Could play that game all day and would drive my folks crazy because I wanted the electric battleship that made the noise of stuff being hit. So it's just a great contrast where I already had such love for the game that I think it made me appreciate a movie, with all this weird stuff in it. And, Clue, I had no appreciation for the game until I watched the movie.
Elektra?
One of the things, yet another thing I appreciate about Clue is that it's an A-list ensemble cast that are not afraid to be an ensemble. And your way into that movie is Tim Curry as the butler. He's not one of the characters who might be the murderer theoretically, because he's you. He's the one who knows all of the stuff that's going on. And it was such an interesting character to add to make all the pieces come together. But every one of those people is there, even unmentioned as yet. Michael McKean, Martin Mull, Lee Ving as Mr. Nobody. All of it was just so well planned. Colleen Camp. The characters in that movie are fantastic. And I feel very bad for all of you who didn't live where I was up in the Boston area. And it was still in the olden days where each theater showed one movie, maybe two movies. And it showed Clue in the paper, and it would say, these two theaters showing ending A, these three theaters showing ending B, and these theaters showing ending C. So I knew where to go, but I was driving all over the greater Boston area so that I could see all the different ones. I knew which ones they were. It just, I was driving from Waltham all the way over to Beacon Hill to see one of them. It's just what you did. I was young. It didn't bother me so much, and gas was cheap.
And Boston probably wasn't so much of a crazy grid back then either.
No, it was like, cow paths. But, I was in the suburbs of Boston then. I hadn't moved into Dorchester yet, so.
Okay, I'm from New Bedford, so.
Yeah, I was in Waltham. It wasn't a big deal back then. I was still young. I didn't mind staying up late. Dinosaurs walked the earth.
Oh, did you have to go to uphill both ways to get to school?
I know. I was a grown up and had a job. It was the 80s.
Were the wolves nipping at your heels or not?
Well, it's Boston, so.
Well, no, that was only when you went into town. The city was something else.
So was the Kennedys nipping at your heels?
Yeah. So, Matthew, I'm going to start with you on this one. One of the other things we see a lot of, especially things like Jumanji, even with Ouija, it's the game itself is the story. It's a story built around playing the game, right? Versus the notion of just having, um, Battleship, where it's the theme of the film. What are films that stand out to you that adapt and pull in playing the game and that unleashes something in the film, whether that is something like Jumanji or Ouija, where it really unleashes things, or in some cases it's just the playing of the game is central and critical to the movie?
Well, in the original Jumanji movie of the 90s, it's almost like a lit RPG. They're playing the game throughout the movie. And at one point, the kid tries to cheat and turns into a monkey. With Battleship, they had to come up with like a scientific explanation for why all the Navy's advanced visual tech wouldn't work. So you have to kind of find your enemy the old-fashioned way. So I thought Battleship, the stuff in Battleship, I thought was actually pretty clever.
Michael, how about you?
Yeah, with the old Jumanji, and then also Battleship, the aspect of playing the game. You can even bring Real Steel into that to a certain degree, since Hugh Jackman is, playing with his Rock'em Sock'em Robot. The bringing the aspect of playing the game into it actually would, in my opinion, give more impact to the movie itself. Because, like I said about Hasbro and nostalgia dollars, most of this is about getting people not only to pay the money for the movie, but to go buy the game. Make more money for the partners and the producers that way.
Layla, how about you?
Yeah, I have to agree with the old Jumanji and Battleship. I think the action of playing any game makes it possible to do, like, for me, I would love to see Cards Against Humanity turned into a group of friends playing the game, and just the things that go around a game night. Like, the game would still be a part of it, but you get that plot and you get those friends, and I think that's what a good game night is about, is the people you're with and the relationships and how long you've been doing it. Like when we talked about tag, you look at that time that you put into playing the game, and that's what would be able to make a fun movie. I mean, if they can make a movie about book club and have it be sweet and touching and funny, they can make a movie about anybody playing anything. Bean Boozled, come on. Just the mind-blowing things that could be done with a group that's, playing that game, but also having their lives unfold and, getting together and all the insanity that can go with it.
I'm imagining a Cards Against Humanity movie where everything they come up with actually happens for real. That would be
amazing.
Awesome.
And
that would be a hella fun movie.
I was just picturing it as a Kevin Smith film. So old school Kevin Smith. But yeah, now the idea of Cards Against Humanity, what you play comes to life.
Yeah.
And happens to you.
NC-17 real quick, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, after my sister gave me a personalized deck of Cards Against Humanity of all just stupid things that I've done. Elektra, how about you?
Where were we going on this? Sorry.
What about films that are more set about playing the game?
Have the game in them. I'm going to throw a curveball here. How about 21? There's a movie out there called 21, based on real events, of course, about a bunch of people playing blackjack in casinos.
And counting the cards.
And counting cards and making tons of money. And what happens to you when you go to casinos in Vegas and you count cards as a team and they catch you? Because they do not like people who effectively find a way to cheat and therefore win a lot of money from casinos. Because the house is supposed to do all the winning. And but there's a lot of card playing going on in and amongst the film, which is actually rather good, although it doesn't age well because Kevin Spacey. But among other things, it is a fine film. And based loosely on real events that happened at one point. But lots of blackjack playing in the film. And we haven't talked about card games, and I keep seeing cards for some reason. I have cards on my mind for some reason, Jim.
Well, I might have thrown them up behind me. I have no idea why. Joker's wild. Jeannie?
Elektra, I hadn't thought about 21, but you're right. That was about playing. But I'm sort of with Matthew on the Jumanji, the old one, as they play the game through. There was far more of the game play than there was in the new adaptations, which I thought were actually better movies. But in many respects, the original the original Jumanji, you are more immersed in the game itself because you don't really know which roll of the dice is going to do what. And I think Clue gets you in that same space because if you've ever played Clue and you see the movie for the first time, you really don't know what direction they're going to take. So I think it involves the audience a little more, whereas the new Jumanji ones are more of a let's just sit back and watch. But I'm with Layla. I'd love to see a movie about the other one. I'd love to see a movie them do with red flags. That card game is hysterical.
Ironically enough, for kids, I would love to see a Candyland, or twist that, go horror, and do a Candyland meets Hansel and Gretel, just messed up, scary, like just darken that up, add some Tim Burton, and just
yeah, Tim Burton does Candyland would be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Candyland meets Candyman.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Something goes wrong, you get the hook.
I think Wreck-It Ralph kind of plays with Candyland and, Monopoly and Operation and some of the other old board games to a certain degree. And a part of the reason I enjoyed it as much as I did was, it kind of gives you that reference to Candyland and some of the other ones that were old school.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there, and I've got one more question to go after this one, and it kind of plays off what we were just doing. I want you to pick and tell me what game you would like to see adapted into a film and by what director. Like, I'm thinking Quentin Tarantino does Chutes and Ladders.
Oh.
All right, who wants it first?
Well, I've already got the Tim Burton Candyland going over here, so that would be my one. I think it would be fun. I think there's so many ways to twist that and play with the candies and maybe even bring them to life, or the effects of eating certain candies. Now we're going on a little Alice in Wonderland, but I think candy is such a fantastical thing and people are so attracted to it and it's hard to put down that I really do think somebody could do something really neat and off the wall and kind of bizarre and fun, like Beetlejuice meets Candyland, something like that.
Go ahead, Elektra.
All right. One of my favorite board games is Settlers of Catan. And I would absolutely adore seeing somebody put together enough of a plot beyond Sheep Go Ba to make that into a movie. And if you got to give it a director, I'd like to see Richard Speight Jr. He played Gabriel in Supernatural and directed a whole pile of Supernatural episodes. I'd like that to be his first feature film, and I'd like it to be a huge hit. So he becomes a big name director. I mean, if Peter Berg can direct, Battleship, and he's done a whole bunch of stuff since then. Why not start with Richard Speight Jr.?
All right, Michael.
Well, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to directors, but and I'm pretty sure this director is probably cast by now. But how about a Monty Python version of Monopoly or Oregon Trail?
Oh,
That would be awesome.
Nope, Terry Gilliam's still around. Terry Gilliam does the Oregon Trail. You have died of dysentery. The Bigfoot comes down from the sky.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah.
You still die
Terry,
from
you
dysentery,
wake up,
but this
smiles, and that's what kills you.
Jeannie, what's your thought?
Oh my gosh, it's a strange mashup, but David Leitch did the Fall Guy, and I really enjoyed that. I'd love to see him do either Red Flags or Apples to Apples, or maybe a Tim Burton Apples to Apples. That could be kind of fun because they would then be poisoned apples. And that could be a great deal of fun. And, a movie that's kind of about games, but not that I should probably go see who the director of that is and put them in the mix is the horror movie Ready or Not. And maybe Red Flags or Cards Against Humanity by the director of Ready or Not.
Matthew, how about you? What,
who I think would do Cards Against Humanity and do an epically crazy job? Rob Zombie. Let Rob Zombie do Cards Against Humanity and just see how that all turns out.
Okay. Anybody here ever played the game Secret Hitler?
Yes.
Well, you could make it like a political thriller. The Nazis are going to take over the government, so you have to give the government police powers to stop the Nazis. It turns out the Nazis are behind the effort to give them police powers, and they can take it over themselves. It's like this political conspiracy theory stuff. Things I don't know who's a good director of political conspiracy thrillers.
Oh gosh,
Guys that did the Captain America movie
or the Bourne movies.
The one with the Winter Soldier, that might be good.
Yeah.
Whole Hydra plot.
I was trying to remember.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Or Doug Liman, who did all the Bourne movies.
That's what I was trying to remember was Bourne films.
Or there's another game that's like Mars colonization. And let's see, Ron Moore, the guy who did Battlestar Galactica, and now he's doing For All Mankind. Of course, you also just give him the Kim Stanley Robinson Mars trilogy and have adapt those. It's the same thing.
Yeah, Ridley Scott would be good for that.
Oh. Yeah. That was a good idea. Where did Aliens?
I want to throw one last question out there. And Elektra, I'm going to start with you on this one since I know you've got to bounce here in a minute. What has gameplay taught you about storytelling as a writer?
Oh, that is intriguing. Never be afraid to bring something in from left field as long as you can back it up. I realize that that's convoluted, but you've got to back it up after you bring it in. Because if you don't explain something, people get really pissed.
Yeah, but that's such a good point because I thinking about Battleship, talking about bringing something in from left field, and still and yet having sort of that carry through thread. I think it's probably taught me that character development, just like I think it was Matthew saying about Clue. Or maybe it was you, Elektra, I can't remember, that a good cast covereth a multitude of sins. And if you've got really good characters, you can get away with some things plot-wise that you might not otherwise. If you've got characters people fall in love with.
Matthew?
I don't know if I ever played games to learn how to do stories. I heard you could turn a Dungeons and Dragons campaign into a fantasy novel or story, because a lot of fantasy magazines say, don't send us your D&D campaign. Is that a challenge?
Mm-hmm. That's where Lit RPG came from. Michael?
for storytelling and board games, I think it would have to be a focus on combining for real engagement. I mean, the story is supposed to be engaging, but finding a way to make the reader feel like they're part of the mystery solving or part of the actual storyline, like in a more direct engagement. And the old Jumanji was a good example, because they were playing the game and then they were suddenly dealing with, the reality that was being imposed by the game. And again, that's also kind of lit RPG at the same time. But I think, the way games are designed also is a great teacher for engaging story.
Layla?
For me, it taught me how to weave storytelling and character development. A lot of people don't know this, but I played online wrestling RPGs for 17 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
my first 3 novels come from the game world that I was playing in. I was actually created eFeds. It was professional wrestling role-playing games. You create an eFed, you create a wrestling character, you have matches, you write the matches, you come up with strategies, you write the promos. And, we're diehard wrestling fans. You learned how to study the promos and then dissect what makes a good promo. And that's how I learned to create a world, but create my characters and give them something unique. You don't want to have your character sounding like Ric Flair and Sting. You want to understand how a promo unfolds but be unique and original, because in the game we played, the best writer won. Your story had to be better than your opponent's. Your promo, your RPG, what you wrote had to be better than your opponent in order to win the match. And you didn't know if you won the match until the match, whoever the match writer was, whoever the president of the Fed, they had match writers, they'd write a whole show. And just like you tune in to SmackDown, you'd turn on your computer, you'd open up the show, they had announcers, color commentary, security, and you read the show like you were watching SmackDown. And that's how you found out if your character won and if you'd written good enough. So I just, for 17 years, that's kind of what I did. It got to where I was running a Fed as well as running characters. And when I sat down and really started writing my stories, the only reason that my character in my debut novel is a cage fighter instead of a professional wrestler was I couldn't figure out how to weave the pro wrestling aspect into the story. But cage fighting, easy.
Well, I think we have thrown the fuzzy dice. But before we get out of here tonight, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys, website, social media. Of course, that latest release they need to be adding to that to be read pile. So, Michael, I'll go to you first.
Okay. So for basically finding me, you can find me at deliriousscribbles.com. But for right now, I've got the newest of the Dumpster Mancer books that is currently on Kickstarter. Kickstarter.com/projects/DSII/Dumpster Mancer 3.
Layla?
You can find me at Layla Dorine, author, at Wix.com. You can find me on my somewhat daily blog, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms. I am all over social media. And in 7 days, I have my next novel coming out. It is called Twisted Chassis. It is a small town romance, part of a shared world set in a place called Foggy Basin.
Jeannie?
You can find me on most social media. You can find me on my website, which is jeanneadams.com. Hopefully it's up and running. And you can find me here on ConTinual. My latest release was in the Mercedes Lackey anthology, Anything with Nothing. And I will be in her next anthology, which comes out in November, called Feuds.
And Matthew?
Okay, I have a Substack called The World According to Quinn. You just look up Matthew W. Quinn on Amazon. You'll see my Long War young adult horror series. One of my church friends calls it the Young X-Files. It's the Thing in the Woods, the Atlanta Incursion. I'm working on the third one, The Walking Worm. I also have the Battle for the Wasteland steampunk fantasy series. And I've reactivated my Twitter account for a Kickstarter I plan to run for The Walking Worm, at Matthew W. Quinn.
Cool.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authorsandjoesworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and of course here at Continual. And we will see you guys again soon. And
Thank you.
go watch Clue.